Because I am so used to taking that kind of vacation. There were like 3 or 4 times that I left my room and got quite a ways down before I realized, oh my gosh, I need to take like real money with me. Welcome back, travel fans. I'm Morgan from the very unofficial travel guides, and this week in front of the red sofa, I'm going to talk about resort land vacations versus cruise vacations. As most of you know, I just returned a couple days ago from a beautiful, fantastic, very eventful stay on the island of Gran Canaria, which is a Spanish island off the coast of Africa. And I had a lot of great adventures, did a lot of cool things, played a lot of cool tennis, and there will be a lot of videos about that coming up. And that vacation, as I mentioned in a previous Sunday Sofatime, was something a little bit different. I have done a few of those kind of trips in the past, but since the very unofficial travel guides has really gained momentum, most of my travel was always focused on creating the kind of videos and content that I know the most of you are interested in and that seem to help the most people. And those are videos related to cruise ships or Disney parks. And I love both of those things, but I just decided, and I took you guys through this whole thought process already in that other Sunday Sofa Time. I just decided that I wanted to do something that I haven't done in a while, and that was just go stay in a big, luxurious resort on the beach and play a lot of tennis. And that's what I just did, and I just got back a couple days ago, and I'm still sort of basking in the afterglow of all that. While I was there in this resort on Gran Canaria, I did a lot of thinking about how that kind of trip, that kind of resort vacation stay is similar, comparable, and different to being on a cruise. Because all of you know, I've done how many cruises now? Like 13, 14, 15? I don't have the number in my head right now. I'm not going to count, but it's been quite a bit. It has been so many since the last time I did a vacation like I just finished. So that's what I want to talk about in this video today. And as always, if you agree with me or disagree with any of the things that I say or want to add something to those, then just write it in the comments below. I'm always happy to read what you guys have to say as well. Let me get to my notes here. Okay, one definite advantage that I noticed to staying where I just stayed, and you know what? I think I will try to compare like a cruise vacation to this resort where I was right now. And of course, I know there are so many exceptions. Like any point I'm going to bring up, there is definitely a way that you could compare it to a ship that makes it better or worse. You know what I mean? Or a resort that makes it better or worse. So like I said, I'm just specifically taking this 10 days that I just spent at the Costa Meloneras resort on Gran Canaria and comparing it to cruising in general, all right? So that's the standpoint I'm coming from. And the first thing I wanted to mention was, for the money I spent in the resort, I definitely got a much bigger, living space. Yes, I think that when you look at bang for your buck, staying in a big resort is going to give you much more space. Space to sleep in, space in the bathroom, space to store your stuff, and that was great. The room that I had was a standard room at the Lopesan Costa Meloneras resort, and I had a gigantic balcony. I had a gigantic bathroom. There was a big entryway as well in the room. And then I had the sleeping area as well. And now I'm going to be showing you more about all of that coming up in the next month or so when I get to those videos. The room also had its downfalls, but altogether there was just so much more space, and that was something that I really enjoyed. I mean, I was traveling on my own, so I even had more space, and it just felt like, it felt more luxurious, I guess you could say. So that's a definite plus to doing this kind of land-based vacation, is that for the money you spend, if you're just looking at the area that you live in while you're there, that was much bigger than any cruise cabin I've ever stayed in. All right, here's another thing that I really enjoyed about this vacation, and that is it was so much less stressful than a cruise. All right, I'm not saying that cruising is always stressful or necessarily needs to be stressful, but I guess I have to explain to you how I think about this kind of stuff. I feel like when you're on a cruise, and I know I've talked about this not too long ago in a different Sunday Sofatime. I feel like when you're on a cruise, especially if you're going to a lot of ports, you feel the pressure to leave the ship every day and go out and see as much as you can from wherever you are at that day. You know what I mean? Like if you're on a Mediterranean cruise especially, you're visiting all these amazing places like Rome and Palermo and, Sicily and all these places. And it might be the only time that you're ever there. And so you feel the pressure. Like it's like staying on the ship and just relaxing is not even an option. You know what I mean? And that is one thing that I really appreciated about staying in one resort for the entire 10 days is that it got to the point where I had seen all of the things around the resort that I basically wanted to see, or I had plans to see them. And it was so much easier to just think, you know what, I'm going to stay in bed a little bit longer today. Or, you know what, I'm going to go and hang out at the pool until lunch. And I did that yesterday, but I'm going to do it today too. I've never felt that chill on a cruise except on the transatlantic cruise that we did. You know what I mean? So it depends on what you're looking for. It depends on what you're into. I'm not saying it's necessarily an advantage or a disadvantage. It's all about your attitude toward the whole thing. But I definitely found it much easier to just relax and not stress about plans staying in this resort that I just stayed at because, yeah, it was all there every day and I didn't feel like there was any FOMO. You know what I mean? Here's another thing that I found more of an advantage to staying in this land-based resort than a cruise ship, and that is coming and going was just so much easier. And I don't mean just checking in and checking out, although that was also much easier. I mean like just during the day, because the resort I stayed in, and if you follow me on Facebook or Instagram or Twitter, you've seen it was really, really amazing. This whole pool area and the garden area and all that, and the tennis center and all that. It was just really, really cool. When I wanted to leave the resort to go to the beach or to go to a restaurant or to go out to the bars at night, it was just so much easier than when you're leaving a ship, because when you are on a ship, you need to, wait in line and go through the security, and especially getting back onto the ship at the end of a port day, sometimes you're standing there for like a half an hour, and then you have to go through security in the port, and then you go through security again when you get back on the ship, and it wasn't like that at this resort. There was a small security checkpoint to get from the beach back into the resort, but that was just to keep, people who aren't staying at the resort like outside, which I think is fine. But there was no like waiting in line, there was no opening my bags, there was no metal detectors, there was no, walking through a body search or anything like that. It was just going through a gate and showing my resort card, So, there have been times where Marcus and I have been on a ship and we've, gone down to deck 4 or whatever deck it was, gone through security, checked out, gone down the gangway, and then realized, oh, shoot, we both forgot our sunglasses or something like that. And then, you have to go wait in the line to get back on the ship and stuff like that. What I'm saying is it's just so much easier when you're on a land-based vacation. If you've made it halfway to the beach and you're like, oh, shoot, I forgot sunblock, then you just walk back. And you just walk back to your room and you get it. And there's so many less steps in the process of coming and going. Here's one thing that is, I think, more of an advantage to cruising than staying in land-based resorts. And like I said, there are always exceptions. There's going to be exceptions to everything I say. But I stayed at the Costa Meloneras resort for 10 days, and my room was always very clean, and everything was taken care of that needed to be taken care of to a certain extent, but I never saw the person who was doing it once. So I never met my cabin steward. And that's something that I always think is kind of cool about being on a cruise, is that your cabin steward is very visible. The person who takes care of your cabin, they will be there in the morning and usually in the evening as well, and you'll run into them and you'll have a conversation with them, and you have the opportunity to talk with them and be like, oh, could you push the beds together, or could you take the beds apart, or could I get a different pillow, or you don't need to tuck in the corners because I always untuck it, or can we have some more soap? All those things are much easier to take care of on a cruise ship, definitely, than on a land-based vacation. And I know maybe it's different in other resorts, but at least in the stay that I just had, I never saw the person who did it once. So there was no opportunity to have any kind of dialogue or to communicate with her or him about anything that I needed differently. You know what I mean? So that's something that I think is a little bit better on a cruise vacation. Here's something else that I enjoy much more on a cruise than on a land-based vacation, and that is the whole money and paying thing. When you are on a cruise, you can pay for just about everything on the ship, and if you go to one of the private islands, like Labadee or Coco Key or whatever, then that's all included in the price of your cruise, and you just have to show your cruise card, and if you're going to be paying for something, then it just gets booked back to your room. And of course you have a certain amount of options when you're doing a resort stay as well. Like I had a pina colada by the pool one day, and I had that charged back to my room, and I bought a bottle of water from the little supermarket in the resort, and I had that charged. No, I didn't have that charged back to my room. I couldn't. I had to pay cash for it. Yeah. So the point I'm trying to make is when you stay on land, you are going to be dealing with cash a lot more, because as soon as you leave the resort, and I did leave the resort quite a bit to go have lunch in certain places, or to go to the supermarket and buy these huge bottles of water that I was drinking like 3 of every day because it was so hot and I was sweating so much. And I feel like when you're on a cruise, it's a little bit, the whole payment system is a little bit more convenient because you spend so much time on the ship, and on the ship, most of the things are paid for already, or you just show them your SeaPass card or whatever, and then it gets booked to your bill. And here's something that's kind of funny, because I am so used to taking that kind of vacation, there were like 3 or 4 times that I left my room and got quite a ways down before I realized, oh my gosh, I need to take like real money with me. That little kiosk at the beach is not going to take my resort card. Yeah, it was weird, and I thought about you guys a lot. I wonder if I'm the only person that this happens to, that when you go and stay in a normal hotel, that you leave and don't take any money with you, and you're like, oh wait, I don't have a magic band, or I don't have my SeaPass card. You know what I mean? So that's something that I also enjoy more about a cruise. The next point I want to bring up, and it's something very specific to the resort I just stayed in, is that if you are into the whole swimming and hanging out in the pool, you will definitely, at least at the kind of resort that I just stayed in, you will have many, many more options. When I think of the bigger NCL ships that we really love and that we spent a lot of time on, like the Bliss and the Getaway and the Epic, if you really want to swim, going on a cruise is not optimal for that. And compared to the resort that I just stayed in, that had this enormous lake of a pool, plus a lazy river, plus a quiet pool, plus the pool that belonged to the spa area, it was like water overload. And it was much easier to find someplace to chill, like at a lounger or whatever, and just to find someplace in the pool to go swimming. I've been on cruise ships where there was literally no space around the edge of the pool or in the pool itself. And that's just not fun. And it's like not swimming, you know, it's just like getting wet and getting out. I like to dive into the pool. I like to swim around. I like to, you know, go underwater and blow bubbles and do all that stuff. And that was much more possible on this land-based vacation. I mean, it was like, I'm making a video about just that. Oh my gosh, you guys, I miss that pool area so much already. The resort that I was just staying in had no water slides. There was a big water park close by that I went to on the last day that I wish I had gone to earlier because I really loved it. Also, a video coming about that as well. You know, most modern cruise ships do have water slides nowadays. So that is an advantage. If you like that kind of action, and you know I do, then in that sense, a cruise vacation is a little bit better. But then, of course, if I think about the Atlantis resorts in Dubai and the Bahamas, and I've been to both, they have amazing water parks as well. And I know that other resorts, like the new Margaritaville resort in Orlando, also has a great water park. So some resorts do have water slides, but the one that I just stayed at did not. So, you know, a lot of cruise ships do have water slides, which is a plus, but they don't have gigantic pool areas where you can really like swim, you know what I mean? Okay, speaking of external activities, and this is something that of course I talked a lot about before this vacation, and that is I've never seen like a full-on tennis court or anybody really playing tennis on a ship. And this resort that I stayed at, and a lot of resorts that I've seen and stayed at, had not only tennis courts, but like a tennis program where you could like take lessons and play in tournaments and stuff like that. And so if you're really into tennis or you're really into golf, you know, two sports that I think a lot of people my age like to play, then a land-based vacation is going to be way more your thing than going on a cruise. And of course you can do both of these things while on a cruise, but not really on the ship. You're going to have to like have it set up in some port. And what I enjoyed about being in this resort and having it set up the way it was is not only could I play in the tournaments, but I also, you know, met people at the tournaments that I could set up to play then on other days where I had no training or where there were no tournaments. And so it was a nicer way to like get to know people and sort of like make connections while on vacation, you know what I mean? So that's just another thing. If you're into things like golf or tennis, then a land-based vacation is definitely going to be more valuable in that sense. Okay, moving on to the food options. And before I do that, I'm going to put a little commercial break right here. Did you see it? If you saw it, that means the next movie you see is going to be one of your favorite movies of all time. Let me know if I got it right. The next thing I want to talk about is the food. And like I said, I'm going to be taking the experience I just had and comparing it to cruises. And there were some big similarities in the sense that this resort, the Lopesan Costa Meloneras on Gran Canaria, had two big main dining rooms. They had different names and different atmospheres, but they both served the same food for breakfast and dinner. I never went for lunch because it wasn't included in my package. And in fact, I don't think they even offered lunch. So when you're on a cruise, it's technically considered full board, or if you have the drinking package, that's like all inclusive. I had half board, meaning at this restaurant or at this resort, I could have breakfast every day and dinner every day, and lunch I had to pay for, and any drinks, like alcoholic drinks or whatever, or cola, stuff like that, I had to pay for that as well. And the food at this resort, there was I would say a large variety of pretty high quality food for people who eat meat and fish. And if you're new here, I don't do either of those things. So after the first couple of days, I was sort of, disappointed in the variety. And I mean, I like to make myself a nice salad, and they had a lot of like really nice, like local flair, like papas bravas and pimientos and things like that, and a lot of really great cheese. All things that I really love to eat, but not like 10 days in a row. So I found myself actually, at lunchtime, I always went out to eat anyways. I did have one lunch at the resort by the pool. But otherwise, I went out to the promenade on the beach side or on the other side and had had some Indian food, had some Mexican food, had some sushi. So there were a lot of interesting options close by, which was a good thing, but not included in the price. And I had to pay, you know, cash or credit card for them. And I've never, oh, I won't say never, but I've very rarely had that kind of experience on a ship where, let me just say it the other way around. On ships, I've always been like totally impressed by the variety, including vegetarian options. And it's always been like a really fun thing on the ships to try out new things and to see what's it going to be in the buffet today, what tasty things are there going to be to try. And it wasn't like that, at least at this resort. So, like sort of one plus point for the cruises when it comes to the food. Okay, the final thing I want to talk about is the price. And this is something that is such a huge variable, and there's so many, you know, factors involved in it that, you know, it could be different depending on the cruise side or the land-based side, depending on where you're going, how long you're staying, what it is you're having included, I know. But if I'm just comparing this trip to normal cruises, I would say this was a little more expensive than the average amount of money that I pay to go on a cruise. I have been on cruises that have cost this much altogether, including flight and food and stuff like that. But I have been on, I would say more of the cruises I've been on have cost less than this. Some of them considerably less, but some of them like generally less. But, you know, like I said, there's so many factors, and it would be interesting for me to like do some like simulations and like look a little bit further in the future and say like, okay, let's say I want to go on this ship at this time and see how much it costs, and then try to find a land-based vacation at one of those big resorts like Atlantis, or maybe at this resort again, because would love to go back there. Whoo, would I love to go back there. And just compare it like a little bit further in the future, because I booked this kind of last minute and it's the middle of summer vacation here, so probably not the best deal. But all in all, I think that either way, if you are like diligent and maybe use a travel agent and have flexible dates, I think you can find really good prices on cruises, and I think you can find really good prices on land-based vacations as well, where you get a lot of great things for a reasonable price. Let's say that. All right, that is the end of this part of the video, but now comes the time on Sunday Sofatime where I do something that I haven't done in a while. Yes, I'm going to comment on your comments live on air. While I was at the resort last Friday, I did a live stream, and it wasn't until I got home that I realized the connection was really bad. So thank you everybody who stuck around for it, and thank you to all the people who've watched it now in the future. And the comments that I'm going to comment now are from that video. Or the comments that I am going to comment on now are from that video. And the first one is from Carrie Walsh. Hi, Carrie. Carrie says, yes, I would love to see a video comparing land vacations and cruises. Well, it's your lucky day. What do you think? Is this the information that you were looking for? Did you find this interesting? Please let me know in the comments below. So the next question I want to answer is from Shane N. Shane writes, hi, Morgan. Glad you're having fun on vacation and that you're back in the tennis tournaments. LOL. Yeah, that was dramatic, wasn't it? I'm also glad I got back in the tennis tournaments. Would you be able to make a video comparing European resorts versus American, North, Central, and South American resorts? I've looked at the resort you're staying in, and I honestly have no idea what half-board means. Well, now you know as well, Shane. I've only really been to all-inclusives in the Caribbean. Thanks. Well, Shane, I don't feel like I'm really qualified to do that because I've never stayed in any Central or South American resorts. I worked at the Conrad Resort in Uruguay several years ago, but I don't really have like that kind of memory of it in order to do that. But I could, compare like Miami resorts to European resorts, and in fact that's a really good idea to just make a video for maybe 2 different videos, one for Americans vacationing in Europe for the first time, and one for Europeans maybe vacationing in America for the first time. What do you guys think about that? Would you guys want to see those videos? Tracy Dunderdale, hi Tracy, writes, looks amazing, heart. Glad to hear your injury has improved, yes, thank you, and that you came in second in the tournament. Congratulations. I would love to see a comparison video. I think that's this video, right? So I'm glad I could do that for you. Enjoy the rest of your stay and look forward to more information about it via your Facebook post. Yes, Tracy, I'm glad you follow me on Facebook too. And I have like 40,000 subscribers here on YouTube, and I only have like 5,500 followers on Facebook. So if you have Facebook and don't follow me on Facebook, why? And if you are considering, making a Facebook profile, then yeah, please come over and hang out with me on the Very Unofficial Travel Guides on Facebook as well. Now, two things that you guys should know. If you find my private profile and I don't know you personally, I'm not going to be your friend. Sorry, it just doesn't work like that. Find the Very Unofficial Travel Guides Facebook page, and that's where we can connect. Also, there is a private group for the Patreon supporters of the Very Unofficial Travel Guides. And if you're not a member of patreon.com/veryunofficial, then I'm not going to let you join that either. I'm sorry, you guys. Those are just the rules. But altogether, if you're on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter, you can follow me there. And that's also another interesting way to keep in touch. And it's more like current. You know what I mean? Like, I'm recording this video, it's Monday today, but you guys aren't going to see it until Sunday. But on Facebook and on Instagram, I post things that like I'm experiencing usually like right then, or thoughts that I have right then, or I post polls and questionnaires and things like that. And so yeah, it's just another fun way to keep in touch. So maybe I'll see you guys over there as well. That's it for Sunday Sofa Time. Thanks for hanging out with me, and I will see you next week. So